Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Monday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. We have a lot to cover here on Couch Potato Diary. One weekend in the books in the NFL playoffs. Pretty much. We got one game left to go. Plus, it is a UFC fight week, the first pay-per-view fight week of 2025. So we'll be starting that out the way we always do, looking at the storylines for the main event, which a couple good ones at the top of this card at location TBD. Obviously, all of our thoughts with everyone out in California right now, dealing with the fires out there. Plus, we have Smackdown Recap from Friday and WWE RAW to get ready for tonight. So, a lot to cover. As always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca. We got the hat on here today, some great sweaters, and some awesome Calgary swag on the website, so check that out. All right, let's dive right in and get into the NFL postseason as a couple surprising results from the weekend. Let's break it all down. So, the weekend basically done in the NFL as the divisional round all but set. We have one more game to go tonight with the Vikings taking on the Los Angeles Rams. If you want a breakdown of that game, a preview of it, did that in the full preview over on Friday's show or whenever it came out. For the live stream watchers, that one came out on Wednesday. So I will share that in the chat because it's up on YouTube right now. So if you just want a breakdown of that game, it's up on YouTube right now. Just check out Couch Potato Diary on the YouTube. But let's get into what we saw from the weekend. Texans take down the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a... I would consider it a surprising result, but it is something that we kind of talked about on Monday, or on last week, when we said the Houston Texans are a better football team than the LA Chargers are. They have just looked like it for 0% of this season. And so a credit to the Houston Texans for coming in and stepping up in this game and really showing what this team is capable of. And it was quite impressive what they were able to do. And so they now go into a matchup this weekend with the Kansas City Chiefs. And again, I don't think many people are giving them much credit because of what we saw in the regular season. It is tough to not just say, okay, well, one game, there is what it is. But I do think that this time, the difference is, when you look at, like, talent for talent, I don't necessarily think this one is this going to go necessarily the same way. But I think this was a very big win for the perception of the Texans. This is now a couple years in a row where they have won playoff games. And I think when you look at the season that they were having, with Stroud struggling, the offense couldn't really do anything. Even the defense, that was supposed to be a bit of a strong suit for this team, even the defense was kind of regressing a little bit, right? So you have some concerns there. But now, just one win. And it's crazy because it's one win. But just one win, and all of a sudden you feel so much better about what this team can do. And you feel a little bit better about what CJ Stroud can be going into next year. I'm not saying that they were going to trade him to the Giants or anything like that, but this was a sophomore slump year. And there are times where the sophomore slump is a little bit more predictive than what the rookie year can be. But now, seeing Stroud do that in a postseason against pretty good Chargers defense, you feel pretty good about that. I do think the bigger story coming out of this game is what the hell was that from the LA Chargers. And I was thinking about this with Justin Herbert, because it's something we kind of talked about last year, where there was all of the things, and it's like, well, it's the coach, it's the this, it's the that. And it's like, yes, like, when we are serving the blame pie for what's going on with the LA Chargers, Justin Herbert doesn't get the biggest piece, right? But I also think we are at a point now with this cat at quarterback where he does at least get to sit at the blame table. I just don't think that we are looking at a guy who is in that upper echelon right now. And it's weird because I think he has all of that talent. But at this point, with what he has done, and I guess more specifically, what he hasn't done, I just don't think we can view him as that upper echelon elite level quarterback. Like the Move the Sticks guys did the quarterback tier for the guys who are left in the playoffs. And like Justin Herbert, he's certainly not in tier 1. And I'm starting to wonder if he is in tier 2. And it's weird because all of the talent is there, right? Like I was a doubter on him coming out of the draft, and it was all, it is a lesson that will stick with me for forever. I did not like what I saw from him when Oregon had their opening game against Auburn. They had a chance to win the game late. They were actually facing Bo Nix in a weird tie it all up thing. But that was Bo Nix's first start as a freshman, and Herbert had a chance to drive down to win the game, and he looked dreadful while doing that and ended up overthrowing the end zone. I was like, this guy doesn't have it, it's not it, whatever. But he has clearly shown that there is an immense amount of talent there. But this was a big moment for him, and it didn't really work. But like I said, every time since he's come into the league, it has been, well, coach wasn't great. And yeah, well, offensive line. And, I love this and that and the other thing. And it's just, we rush to not blame this kid so much in ways that we don't with a Lamar Jackson or someone along those lines. And I just think now, like, yeah, we are at a point. He doesn't have Mike Williams or Keenan Allen or anyone like that walking through that door. But neither does Josh Allen, and we'll talk about what they did in a second here. Neither does Lamar Jackson. He's got Derrick Henry, admittedly, yes, this year. But Lamar Jackson with, I would say, similar levels of help here. I guess Mark Andrews is still better, but still not elite wide receivers. Lamar Jackson's at least been to the AFC Championship game. Does Justin Herbert have the guys around him to absolutely maximize him? Probably not. But he has also not put himself in those best spots either. So I think that we have kind of gone too far in trying to not blame Justin Herbert and pointing out, oh, well, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. And we've kind of forgotten that, he should still get some. Again, not the biggest part of the blame pie, but at least a slice of it. Because I don't think he had a good game on Saturday afternoon. And I think I'm not saying, again, he didn't lose them the game, but he didn't win for him either. And that's kind of what you want from that position right now. Moving on, it was an AFC North matchup, and I swing and a miss on this one for me. Ravens just absolutely beat up a lifeless Pittsburgh Steelers team. It is rare that a Mike Tomlin team, A, looks that bad, and B, you can say this, that a 14-point score actually, I think, does them some favors. I thought they looked putrid. I thought they looked terrible, that they did not look ready for this game or for this moment, even a little bit. And the Baltimore Ravens just went out there and absolutely stole their lunch money and just took it to them. And that is not something that you would expect. And I do think that it is right to point fingers at the coach, Mike Tomlin. And I do think that it is right to start to look at the resume. Yes, no losing seasons. That is incredible, unbelievable run. But also no playoff wins in the last 8 years now. And I don't know. It's a weird spot to be in. Because, look, both of these conversations that we've been having about about all these teams today here in the playoffs, like I'm a Raider fan. Okay, I would love to be able to maybe kind of blame Justin Herbert for an issue. And Mike Tomlin, all he does is lose in the playoffs. Woe is me. Again, coming from my fandom standpoint, but these teams also have higher expectations than the Vegas Raiders. And so I do think that at some point you have to look at what is going on here with Pittsburgh. And they've done such an awesome job with not getting high draft picks and just being able to constantly churn through some of these guys and be able to do it. But I do think now we are at a point where piecing together the quarterback position for these guys isn't enough. Because they have this leadership at the top in Mike Tomlin. And I do think he is a good coach. I'm kind of in between. I think he is a good coach. I do not think he is as good as the people who talk about him as the best coach in the league think he is. And I also don't think he's as bad as the people, more on the analytical side, who say he's overrated. He actually, he gets winning seasons out of teams, but they don't actually go anywhere. So I just think he is a good football coach who has, on occasions, been a great football coach. And you look at the weird teams that they had with AB and Le'Veon Bell and Ben Roethlisberger and all those guys, and to get those guys in line and to be constantly competing for division championships and constantly competing for, at times, Super Bowl is very, very impressive. But I think that the foundation is set. The culture is set. That's obvious out there in Pittsburgh now. But the next level of it is having that leader on the field who can take you to that next level. And Ben Roethlisberger wasn't that for the last few years of his career. Off the field, you could argue that he was never that, but that's another discussion for another day. So he wasn't that for the last few years of his career. Kenny Pickett, obviously not. And now you're starting to, okay, well, it's Russ and it's Fields and it's this and it's that and it's whatever. I think you now need like that leader on the football field to go out and try to get this team. And now this is where all that winning actually sets you back a little bit, which is weird because like winning is better, obviously. And to be able to have that run is again advantageous. But if they could have sucked in one of those years and gone out and got themselves a quarterback to be able to be that tone setter, be that culture setter on the field, then I think they would be in a much better situation than they are right now. And so again, this is not a team that is going to tank. It is not a team that is built to tank. But this is now a team I think that needs to go out and in a real serious and somewhat long-term sort of a way needs to address the quarterback situation and try to get that leader on the field. Another part of it, they need to get George Pickens the fuck out of there because he is just an absolute drain on this team. And I do not think that this is a guy that is going to be part of a winning football program. This is the least Steelers-y guy you can have. And if he's doing that Eeyore routine up on the at the press conference after the game, what's he like in the locker room? Like they had to. He's the only guy in the league who's getting load management in games and stuff like that from a number one receiving standpoint. He cannot be on. I would not want him anywhere close to my football team right now, and I think that is something the Steelers may want to address here coming up in the offseason. But a very rare lifeless performance from this team that leads to, I think, kind of larger concerns out in Pittsburgh. For the Baltimore Ravens, did what they had to do. Right? Like I can't on one hand say, oh yeah, the Steelers, zero resistance, what was that? But goddamn the Baltimore Ravens. But goddamn the Baltimore Ravens. And Derrick Henry, this is the time of year they brought him in for, and this is the type of football game that they didn't play a year ago against the Kansas City Chiefs, where they tried to match Patrick Mahomes passing for passing when the obvious... Like, they were built to beat Kansas City last season, and then they didn't, because they just tried to throw the ball, and that was not the way that you attack that Kansas City team. You could actually kind of get some stuff on them on the ground. Now, this year it's a little bit different, but they are built so well to sustain this kind of a thing. And if they get any kind of lead on you at all, they can just run away and hide. That they can really have some success in that way. But in a different sense now, you still don't love the pass-catching options there, but this is an offense that has enough firepower that if they're trailing, they can come back. It is such a fascinating matchup with the Buffalo Bills next week. I cannot wait to break that one all down and see how that game plays out. I guess for the order that we are going in, a bit of a spoiler, because that's who the Ravens are playing next. It's the Buffalo Bills. The Bills with a phenomenal performance in the second half against the Denver Broncos, picking up a victory. I had some concerns. Warren Sharp with a really good tweet or post on X or whatever on social media. After the first half of that game, Buffalo was playing an absolute perfect game to let an underdog stay in. They felt like they were in complete control of that game, and yet they were a few inches away from that game being tied at the half because Denver misses a field goal in what was a great Bo Nix drive. But they were playing a slow pace, ball control, just work your way down the field. Oh, we didn't get into the end zone. Oh, well, we took some time off the clock and it's 3 points. That's not the way you play when you have a significantly better team. That's the way Denver honestly probably should have been playing. That's the way that underdogs play, where let's try to just make this as, like, we may only score on a couple of possessions, but let's only give them a couple of possessions and try to shrink this game down. Buffalo, you want to up that pace. Like, no, we want a ton of possessions and really try to bury these guys and try to make them keep up with us. So I thought the strategy was off. And then in the second half, they went out and buried those kids and did what they were supposed to do. But it was a very strong performance from the Buffalo Bills. But it was just one that tactically you start to have a little bit of concern about. And this is one of the things with Sean McDermott. And it is why I just can't get there with him being like an elite level coach, is there is still a sense that he is trying to protect this defense, because this defense isn't very good, I don't think. Maybe a little bit better than some people say, but this defense hasn't been good for a couple of years. And he has asked Joe Brady and co. to design an offense that protects the defense instead of maximizes what they have in one of the three most talented quarterbacks in the league right now. And many could argue number one, and he's probably going to get an MVP because of it. But you're not maximizing what you have at quarterback. You are using your offense to try to protect the downside of your defense. And that is just not a way to maximize what you have. There does probably need to be a little bit of complementary football there, but I just have concerns about not utilizing your weapons to their maximum capacities because you're worried about your defense. So that I did not like how they approached most of that game, but they come away with a good win. I'm being very negative about it. That was from a just on the field, like if you just watch on DAZN or Game Pass or whatever you have and wherever you live, if you just watch this game in 40 and it's just play after play after play after play after play, well, yeah, the Bills win most of those plays. They played very well. James Cook is so good. Josh Allen, the growth that he has had and honestly continues to have is remarkable. He is playing at such an elite level at this time. You do have some concerns about the red zone, but they marched that ball against a really good Buffalo Bills defense. It is, again, going to be fascinating to see what they do against the Ravens. On the Broncos side, I have been stubborn all year long on the Bo Nix thing, and I've explained why before. You can go back in the archives, and there's a rant about how this whole thing came together. I have felt before that Sean Payton was a touch overrated, and I still think that a little bit. But I cannot be a hater on this anymore. That was, again, they get buried in the second half. Rookies are going to do that. But the drive that Bo Nix had with under a minute to go, starting at their own 8, to get into field goal range. Now, the field goal misses, that's not his fault. But to get into field goal range with, like, Cortland Sutton is good. Aside from that, like a bunch of dudes who aren't making championship rosters right now, with a pieced together offense, he is going out there and leading a charge. I was so incredibly impressed with what I saw from Bo Nix in this game. So I am officially handing in my Bo Nix hater card, my Sean Payton hater card, because even in defeat, I think they showed that this was an experiment that worked, and the right move was... I don't know if I can get all the way to the right move was made, but they got the right guy at quarterback anyway to figure out where this team is going in the future. He's an impressive kid. He really, really is. And he works in the Sean Payton offense really quite well. Do I think that there is a chance that we kind of see the ceiling for him already? Yeah, I do. There is a very real chance that that's his best year. Now, I do think they're going to get some better weapons around him, and they're going to grow. And so I think this. I don't know if this is the best Broncos season that they have with him at quarterback, but I don't know if, like, oh wow, he's starting at this. What's he going to be in 5 years? I think it's going to be kind of the same. I think he just kind of got to that place a little bit quicker than some other ones did. But a really good showing and a really good team, and a fascinating one to watch now going into the offseason. Then we get into the NFC as the Philadelphia Eagles survive against the Green Bay Packers. This one was, I feel like I'm being really negative about the teams that won, but this one was a bit of a summary of what's happened with the Eagles this season. Philadelphia felt like they were in control of that game, but you look down at the scoreboard and it was close the whole way. And then you get a touchdown from Green Bay and it's like, oh shit, this is a one possession game in the fourth quarter. What are we doing here? It was that all year long for the Eagles, where they would look good. Everything would feel like that we got this. Yeah, we're only winning by 9, but we got this. We're good. And then the other team would come back and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, game's over and we lost. Or we have to come up with a couple of big plays late in this game to seal it away. And now Green Bay, everyone got hurt. So that kind of limited the comeback efforts, I would suggest. But they they really did have a chance to, I think, put Green Bay away in this game. And offensively, they just didn't do it. They were very content to just, again, run the clock, run Saquon Barkley, which there are worse things in the world to do, but run Saquon Barkley, run the clock down, and grind your way to a win. And now Green Bay's offense couldn't do anything, so they were able to get that victory. And when you have one of the best defenses probably left in the playoffs, you can, again, do that thing. But, again, I worry about what it looks like if this team starts trailing, if they have to get into a shootout with the Detroit Lions in the NFC title game, or Minnesota in the NFC title game. Can they come back and pick up a win? I just, the offense still isn't quite at the level that I think it should be based on the talent on this roster. But Saquon Barkley, an incredible performance, and that defense is smothering. The way they rally to the ball, the speed they have on it, the tackling ability all over the field. You have cornerbacks coming in and making strong plays in the run game. We'll see about the Dean injury, but like Bond with the breakout season there, Jalen Carter is reaching the potential that people had for him as a defensive tackle out of Georgia. Like there's just, that defense is scary good, what they can do. And so again, I still think from a roster standpoint, this is the most complete team in the NFL. I just wish it would look like it every once in a while. On the Green Bay side of things, this is a frustrating defeat, I think, for them. Everyone gets hurt. Like the injuries just piled up. And so at the end, you're trying to make comebacks with, with receivers that Jordan Love just doesn't have a rapport with, and it isn't really working, and it's not getting anywhere, and it's just tough. And he doesn't have any time because your star guard got dinged up like 3 plays into the game, and they just had no way of replacing him. I do think that for Green Bay, just to say, well, injuries, what are you going to do? I think there's a little bit of whistling by the graveyard on that one. I do think that there are improvements that need to be made to this team, and I think specifically on that offensive line. Even with the injury on the interior there, those tackles were not ready for this game. That they had one, Tom Brady, who I don't think really showered himself in glory in that game as a commentator, but he was really on this cat Tom on the outside. I believe that's who it was. Maybe I'm whatever. The right tackle for Green Bay. There was that one. He is very obviously concerned about the pass rush that is coming from the Eagles. And so he does that one where the Lions got dinged for it a couple of years ago, where he gets off just like half a beat before, but it's close enough that I don't call it for a false start or anything. But he doesn't just back up into like creating a pocket. He goes so wide and back that Smith just has to make one little, oh, well, there's a lane right here. So I'm just going to go there, and it gets him to the quarterback, and he gets the sack. The offensive line for Green Bay needs to be improved. And that defense, while they did hold up, that defense, I think, needs to be improved. They took some strides this year, because that was a significant hindrance last year. But I still think it is the worst part of this team, and I think it is something that is keeping them from being a championship level. I do wonder now, too, about some of the receivers there. In fantasy in the preseason, I was all about Christian Watson, and I still think there's a talented guy there. I think Reed is probably the most talented of the bunch, but I think all of them are number 2s. And I just feel like they are a number 1 away from this offense really taking off. And I have a couple questions about Jordan Love as well. There still are a few throws that are being made that you just wonder how you missed that. The interception where the linebacker basically didn't move the whole time. And yeah, he is not looking at that. And they disguised it a little with the linebacker coming in, showing blitz, and then dropping out. And so it is a touch of a tough spot for Love, because the linebacker is over on like his left. His eyesight left. And so he looks up, but he's looking right away, because he's got a guy coming in on a crossing route that way. And I think I'm mirrored on the thing, so whatever. But just follow me here. He's got a guy going from right to left, cutting across. And so that's where his eyes go immediately. So I guess in his read, he has checked the linebacker coming in on the blitz, so he has that layer open. Jeez. Almost knocked this thing off. He's got that layer open that he can make that throw there. But it's also a bit of a longer developing route. So on the one hand, I don't know how you can just in your mind mark that guy as blitzing, but also think you have the time for a bit of a slower developing crossing route. But still, that's something like he should have recognized it, because he threw it right in the guy's chest, that there is a linebacker there. As you are stepping up and looking over to that side, there at least needs to be something that notices the linebackers aren't flying at you and have now dropped off into that level, and so you don't throw an interception right at him. Now, also, the pass was behind his guy, but neither here nor there. This is a good Packers team, but I do think that just saying, well, injuries, is kind of hiding the fact that they are not a great football team right now. And that leads us to Sunday Night Football. The Washington Commanders stun the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a 23-20 win to close things out on what was a very fun game. Finally a fun game, really, because the first few were not all that entertaining. But those guys brought it. And again, credit Washington, credit Jaden Daniels. I said in the preview that I was worried about rookie kid, prime time, playing on the road against a team that has been there before. And so I had some concerns about that. But did that moment look too big for him for a moment? Absolutely not. He stepped up in such a major way. It was so impressive to see him march down and get that victory and hang in that game the entire way. You have a couple of issues maybe on fourth down. They're around the red zone, but some teams will have that. They played quite well. They did a really, really good job. And when we were talking about Bo Nix earlier, saying that he's good, but I do think that he's maybe already knocking up on that ceiling. I don't think we've come close to that on Jaden Daniels. I think there is a refining to his skills that you can have that can really lead to a very high-level quarterback with this team. And to have them have that type of a win is so impressive and just allows him now to build that. I will be second guessing them again this week going into the divisional round. But I think that this is just such a bright future for this kid and now for this team. On the Bucs side, my love for them has been well documented at times, because a couple years ago, not this most recent season that we're still kind of in, but last year, we made a lot of money on this with them as the NFC South champion and the over and all of that. We really capitalized on that situation, and so, they're my boys. And again, this year, people kind of counted them out, and we were able to take advantage of that for a few weeks. And so, again, this is one where this is a good football team and a good situation. And you look at it kind of long-termish. On the offensive side, Mike Evans, he's setting records for 11 years in a row being at 1,000 yards receiving. And so just by definition, he's played for 11 years, which is a lot to put your body through. But Bucky Irving is at least something as a young running back. And Baker Mayfield, I still think, is their guy as a quarterback. The defense, though, needs to improve. That was something that was always going to be a problem. And it was one thing that I should have, I guess, marked a little bit in the breaking down of this game, is that this defense is very vulnerable. And they, I think, showed it in that last drive where they just needed a stop. And they couldn't get it. And even when they did get stops, it's all the way down, fourth down by the goal line, and just the kid misses. I'm not going to take that like it's a win because they don't give up points, but I'm not looking at that in the overall picture and, oh, wow, look at what that defense was able to do. That was a calling card for this team when they won a championship. The pressure they were able to put on Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl won them that title. They need to get back to that. When the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I know some teams can get held up on their own identity sometimes, but when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are good, it's because of what that defense is able to do. They have the offense, I think, pretty well figured out. The defense now needs to be improved on because they cost them that game. You would think you'd be able to put maybe a few more points up against a Washington defense that has had some troubles this year, but that defense needed to be better in that moment, and that is why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are sitting here on the sideline. So, one more game to go in the NFL. We will break that one down tomorrow. Also, coming up on the show this week, we'll be looking at the offseason previews for the teams that have been eliminated. So, that's going to do it for the football portion of the show today. Let's move on now to the Ultimate Fighting Championship, as UFC 311 kicks off the pay-per-view schedule for 2025, and a couple very intriguing fights at the top of this card. Let's break it all down, shall we? first time in 2025, the UFC has a pay-per-view fight week with a couple title fights kicking things off here in the new year at UFC 311. So today, we're going to look at what is on the line and the big stories to watch for going into this weekend's pretty fun fight card. We will start at the top as Islam Makhachev defends the lightweight championship against Arman Tsarukyan. And a lot of times on this, we're looking at legacy and all of that. I don't think this is a legacy-defining fight for Makhachev, with a couple of wins over Volkanovski already and a win over Dustin Poirier. Tsarukyan will not be the biggest name on the resume when all is said and done for Makhachev. I think that this is a little dismissive for Tsarukyan. It's a lot dismissive, I guess, for Tsarukyan, but this almost kind of feels like a boxing mandatory, where this guy, he is the number one contender, so he gets this title shot. And it's something I've talked about a little bit. Oh, well, why is this fight happening? This guy doesn't have a chance. Like, well, just because he doesn't have a chance doesn't mean he hasn't earned the right to try. And that is kind of where we're at with Tsarukyan. But for Makhachev, it is just simply, can the dominance continue? He has, in my opinion, done enough to be the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the sport right now. He is so dominant over everyone else at 155 pounds with high-level wins, again, over Volkanovski, who, yes, 145-pounder moving up, but still. A great win over Dustin Poirier as well. This is a guy who has really established himself as one of the best in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So the only story for him is, does he avoid the banana peel, and can he continue his run of dominance into what could be a good year for him in 2025? On the Tsarukyan side of things, hey Toxic, how's it going? On the Tsarukyan side of things, I, again, was just very dismissive of what he brings to this fight and what he potentially brings to this card just in general. But he has certainly earned his way into this title shot. So the big story is, can he do it again? Is he really on this championship level and this upper tier? We've known for a while that this is a good fighter. He has even shown glimpses of being a great fighter. But now he has 25 minutes, whether it's at the Intuit Dome or if they move this somewhere else for UFC 311. By the way, if you're watching this or listening a little bit later, taping this on Monday, January 13th at 1:06 Mountain Time. So just a bit of a time check if we miss things. And you're catching this a little bit later, that is why. But no, I think that this is very clearly a fighter who has earned this opportunity. I just don't know if we have seen enough from him to see that he can actually hang with a Makhachev here. So the main thing here is this guy enough to, and does he have enough to really show that he can be a championship level guy? Yeah, Deeds. Yeah, you know what? Just got to let the people know. Always a little, because, we're previewing something that's happening on Saturday. Some people really take in all of that content. And on the podcast side, and I think on YouTube as well, we do the mega preview on Saturday morning where we accumulate everything up. And so if you're just watching that, then it makes even less sense. But yeah, you gotta let the people know when we're doing this here. On the co-main event side, it is Merab Dvalishvili defending his bantamweight championship against a familiar last name, although a new face to the title picture. It's Umar Nurmagomedov going up against Merab Dvalishvili in a fight sponsored by Scrabble. This is a very strange spot here for Merab, because he had a dominant performance in a championship fight in one of the biggest events that the UFC would put on. And no one's taking him seriously. I'm saying here, he has a chance to put his last win behind him, because it is, the fight was boring. Sean O'Malley, it was a fraud. No one is talking about the control and the discipline and the talent that Merab showed in that fight. So what's on the line here is almost a validation of Merab's championship victory over Sean O'Malley from the Sphere. He now has to kind of show, like, look, I am this dominant and I am this good, and I am going to prove it in this way as your champion right now. It is a very strange spot for a champion to be in. And it is, again, a little unique because he is going in there with a guy with a familiar name in Umar Nurmagomedov. He is the cousin of one of the great fighters in the history of the sport in Khabib Nurmagomedov. Umar comes into this one undefeated and has all of the pedigree that you would associate with that name. And so because of that, I think people are already kind of handing him the title, but he has a chance, much like Islam Makhachev did a couple of years ago, who is now main eventing this card. Umar, I do think, has a chance to be just that absolute grinding, dominant type of a champion that his cousin at one time was. Can he put it all together here against Merab? I think that he can. We'll get into the fight breakdown a little bit more as the week goes on. I think Merab has a few more tools in the toolbox, but I don't think he's got anything as sharp as what Umar can bring to this fight. And so I think what you have here is an undefeated challenger looking to come in and looking to really put his stamp on things in this division and show that you have another star now here in the bantamweight division. So, are these the biggest names that the UFC could throw out there for a pay-per-view? Absolutely not. But I think when you look at the intrigue of these two bouts, I think you have a very, very fun one here at the top of this card for UFC 311. And we'll have more fight previews throughout the week. We now go to the scripted world of professional wrestling as WWE gets ready for week number 2 on Netflix. They closed out week number 1, you would hope in style, but whatever the antithesis of that is what they did. Let's recap a fairly dull WWE weekend, shall we? WWE Smackdown, a 3-hour spectacular, at least part of that is true, went down over the weekend, the last of what is the start of a new era for the WWE, and it really did feel like it was Raw on Netflix, NXT, CW, we got The Rock, and SmackDown also happens. It is that I should have been more on it, that meme with the 3-headed dragon thing, and you have 2 fierce ones, and then another one that's just like, SmackDown was the in this one. This was a bad show. This was a really, really bad. That show sucked. I thought the pacing of it was awful. I thought it just dragged. The content on it wasn't very good, and like this wasn't even just a 3-hour show. Or a 2-hour show, spaced out over 3 hours. This was an hour show spaced out over 3. And not a good hour show. This felt like the old era of the WWE. This felt like a Vince McMahon booked show. You're trying to get a bunch of catchphrases in. You have a lot of segments that kind of go long. You have a lot of stuff that is just there just to be there because we need to fill 3 hours, damn it. I didn't like this at all. I think I'm making that point probably abundantly clear. I thought this was terrible. I thought this was dreadful. The only advantage you have with a 3-hour show is that it gives you time to A, expose people to more talent, and B, it allows that talent to have more time to shine. That does not just mean throw people out in matches that were put together in a kind of not great backstage segment and hope for the best. Because that's how you get dead reactions like we saw for the entire middle part of this show with the tag team matches that we had. Which, by the way, I think we need more clearly defined good and bad guys on there because no one knew who to cheer for, and that just let them all just like, this is an interesting athletic contest that we are witnessing right now, isn't it? Because it was there was no story there. There was nothing there. There was no investment on it. There was nothing. Post wrestling, listening to their breakdown of it, they made the point like this felt like one of those, like we're taping before Saudi, because we have all the main stars over there, and we got to get Cody on the show, so let's just fly him back, and then he can go over there because who cares about jet lag? But like this felt like the crew got snowed out, and so we got to fill 3 hours with like 9 people, so let's do that. I thought this was a brutal show, and I think one of the things that I come away a little bit concerned with is what are they doing with Tiffany Stratton? Because we heard all those reports that from Monday, she gets shown on the Tron or whatever, and the crowd goes nuts. And so WWE and NXT people are like, okay, you guys got a star here. But I think the WWE still views her as a heel. And you look at the line of challengers that are coming for her, aside from Nia Jax, it's babyface Bayley, babyface Bianca, babyface Naomi. Now, one of those is going to turn probably eventually when that tag team breaks up, but for now, it's a bunch of babyfaces coming after her. So she's going to have to stay on that heel side and be that heel character. And I don't think the crowd wants her to be that. anymore. But one of the issues that we have with this particular performer is we've never seen this as a babyface. And so we don't know how she can handle that. I'm sure, like, she's a talented person, so I'm sure she could figure that out pretty quickly. But also, the writers haven't really seen that. And so the people putting this show together don't really know the best way to kind of maximize those minutes with this person now as a fan favorite. Now, I think there's some overthinking in that because a lot of times, oh, well, we need to make Damian Priest or Swerve Strickland on the other show a babyface, and you end up kind of just taking away all the awesome parts of the character that made us love them in the first place. So there's a little bit of it, but it was pretty clear on Monday that this crowd is ready to cheer this performer, and it was very clear on Friday that this company is not ready for you to do that yet. And so I'm worried that they're going to be swimming upstream, on this one a little bit, and that's not going to necessarily help this character out a whole lot. But this is one of the things we talked about on the NXT review last week, where I thought at the time making Roxy Perez a heel was a dumb idea because everyone loves her. She has a moveset that you just fall in love with and a charisma that matches that, right? And then you see her as a heel, and A, it works. But B, now you've given her this runway where she has developed her character into that. And so when she comes back to being a babyface, which I still think is where the money is with her, she at least has now rounded out that character and rounded herself out as a performer where she can now pick some great elements from that and go there. We have only seen Tiffy time as a heel. And so you don't have that well-rounded character yet to really see what we can draw on from that. And now that the crowd is falling in love with her and turning her babyface, we don't have that experience of what we can bring over as a babyface thing. And so it was the same as Braun Breaker too, right? Like he was over as a babyface, maybe being a little overexposed, and then they turn him into a heel. It's like, oh, that feels like maybe not the best way to go about it. And now, again, more well-rounded character, and we've seen some really good strengths in him. I do think that eventually Tiffany Stratton is going to be a phenomenal heel or a phenomenal babyface, but I think she is going to be a star in this industry and with this company. But I do think that they are really trying to just put her into one box right now where we have seen a number of different times that's not necessarily the best way to go about things. Also from this show, I am interested in LA Knight against the Bloodline. I think we need a new name for them, the new Bloodline, because I feel like Roman Reigns with the Ufala now, I feel like that's the Bloodline. So it's weird, but that's semantics. I do think that the LA Knight and the Bloodline are perfect for each other. I think that the Bloodline, it keeps them from fading away. It keeps them right in that spotlight while also being able to elevate LA Knight closer to the main event as we go into WrestleMania season, but then into the rest of 2025 and building up in there. And so I think that they are a really good match for each other at keeping one at the same level and really elevating the other. And I think we're going to get a lot of real fun stuff out of that. And the last thing here, this is not breaking news. Jacob Fatu is just awesome. Everyone has known this for a while. I loved his stuff in MLW. Leader of the Contra unit and all of that. And then some of the like unscripted stuff they did with him was really good. Like just basically everything he touched in that company was awesome. And you could just see superstar in there. And I thought it took them a little bit of time, too long, honestly, to get him into WWE. But now that they have him here, they really have something. He is so different from a lot of what they have on this roster right now. And I think he needs to be a real focus now in this post-Mania. We'll see the build-up here, but looking ahead to kind of the next season of WWE, I think that Jacob Fatu is a very big part of what they should be doing. So that is what happened on Friday. What will happen tonight? Let's get ready for Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw on Netflix, Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, goes down this weekend from somewhere, not this weekend, sorry, tonight from somewhere, as we get the second episode of Raw on Netflix. And I'll be interested to see what this show looks like, because the last one, it was all about the celebration, and it's about the this, and we got The Rock, and we got the big curtain thing that comes down, and Triple H saying babyface and heel, and making everyone all worked up, and all of those things. That one felt like a one-off. Tonight, I think, is going to be what Raw is actually going to feel like on a week in, week out basis, and is actually going to be the thing that we can expect. So I'm fascinated to see, well, without the focus on The Rock and all of that, what this show is. And I like just looking at it, it certainly feels like a different type of a show. Toxic in the chat asking, Raw or football tonight? Or Flames, LOL. Probably not Flames. Probably like playoff football, man. I can't escape a playoff football Monday. So Raw probably gets the I'll watch it later treatment on Netflix. Now, Netflix doesn't care about that because they're Netflix. They just want people watching whenever. So they get an opportunity to just, to replay it. Put it against your football. We don't care. We're going to have people watching this right now. So to me, it is football first and then Raw and then Flames after on somewhat of a replay there. But in terms of what we're going to see tonight here on Raw, I think one of the things that needs to be kind of reestablished is the focus on Gunther. He felt like such an afterthought on that episode, and he is the main guy on this show. So I think you need to make him feel like that. Start building something for him for Saturday night's main event. Start building something for him for the Royal Rumble. And let's start to really get this guy rolling in a big way and get him back to feeling like the big star that he is supposed to feel like. Like I said, he was an afterthought on Raw. And honestly, since losing to Cody, that this whole, he's doubting himself thing has just allowed them to push him further and further and further and further into the background. And he's supposed to be your champion. He's supposed to be the guy who is the standard bearer on this program right now. And so I think we need to get back to that with him on Netflix tonight. Interested to see what's next for Punk Rollins. I do think bigger things are ahead. I don't think that was the blow off there necessarily. I do wonder if the pause button gets hit on that as we build to main event and the Rumble. But for Rhea, like that felt like the end of a couple years of her and Liv. So fascinated to see who the challenger is next now for Rhea Ripley. It's in a bit of a weird time because you're just building up to the Rumble and then you're going to have a Royal Rumble winner. And maybe it's a feud with Rhea and maybe it isn't. But this is always a time I think you can get a little bit creative with your title challengers because the Rumble has always been the star of the show. So you don't really need that big championship grudge match at the top to really drive those home because it's the Royal Rumble. People are tuning in for the Royal Rumble. They're not looking at, Royal Rumble, I don't know. Whoa, Rhea Ripley's facing who? Well, we got to lock that in. I think that with this, you have an opportunity here. They've used it before to see where is Edge at as a title challenger. Let's give a title shot to Hardcore Holly. Let's throw him out there. Let's give a vet a bone here. You allows you to get a little bit creative. So interested to see where they go with Rhea in this one because, like, for those creative challengers, EO has lost a bunch, so it's tough to really heat that one up. And you've just put a bunch of them into the IC title tournament, so you've already given some opportunities there. By the way, I think you go with Lyra for the title tournament tonight. I think she should win this one. She had a bit of steam coming off of NXT, and that has certainly faded the last little while. And so I think you regroup her here and get the win. Cody Burris 678 in the chat. Mystery person going to be tonight. I think we're all assuming Pentagon, right? Like Chad Gable asking for a top luchador, and Adam Pearce, I have just the guy. And then there's the not so subtle, there's a pentagon and a zero with the through it and all of that. So I am assuming it is going to be Pentagon tonight, which, I mean, that alone makes this an episode you're going to want to check out. I'm interested to see the presentation of it, interested to see what he does, and then, like, you get Chad Gable. That's a very good person to have your first match with. So I think this is going to be a fun showcase for him and a fun introduction, but very fascinated to see what it all looks like going into that one. Also tonight, we have Priest against Balor in a street fight. This feels like the end of this one. I would imagine Priest goes over. He's the bigger project right now, and they've been teasing dissension in the ranks for Judgment Day, so I think Finn Balor losing kind of speeds that process up a little bit. And then the last one on the docket that we know of anyway, Sheamus against Ludwig Kaiser. And so again, you already have a lot more scheduled and a lot more focus on what is coming up here tonight on Raw compared to what we had last week. So I think this, like I said, this is going to feel a little bit more closer to what we can expect on a week in, week out basis. But yeah, I think to Cody's point, the mystery person tonight, and it being Pentagon, I think is very, very exciting. Or potentially being Pentagon, I'm assuming, is really, really exciting. And we'll see where they go from there. That is going to do it for the show today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me here on a Monday. As always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca. I got the ball cap here. You get some Canon swag, as well as a whole bunch of cool stuff here from the city of Calgary. As always, these are fueled by Swift Energy. Check out swiftenergy.gg. Use the promo code PKPrimetime for 25% off there. Our next stream, no, we got a thing for this now. Next stream is going to be tomorrow, Tuesday, at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I should definitely start putting that on there. 10 a.m. Mountain Time. We're going to be doing another Couch Potato Diary stream here on twitch.tv/primetime PK. That's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday recording there. So that is when we're going to be here next, unless some breaking news comes down and we have to pop on. For that, follow me on social media, basically everywhere. I am at Primetime Klein. Thank you guys so much again for hanging out. Talk to you all later. Have a great day, everybody.